Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. Here on the Writers' Corner live show, we connect authors to each other and we help readers to find new authors to love. Now, you probably already have your favorite type of book, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, but you never know. We can always introduce you to a new author and a new book to love. On the show, you will meet seasoned as well as new and aspiring authors, and some of our seasoned authors very often share their tips and tricks of how to get published right the first time. And here on the show, we introduce you to the backstories and you get the insider scoop of our authors. So, welcome to the show. I'm Brigetti Lambanda. I'm a global goodwill ambassador and a live streaming advocate who loves to help brands, entrepreneurs, and authors tell their stories and have a great online experience. My co-host is Mary Elizabeth Jackson. She's an award-winning author of the Poolicious book series. Mary, unfortunately, is not able to join us today due to unforeseen circumstances, but that does not take away from giving a warm welcome to our guest, Catriona Murphy. So let's welcome her to the show. Welcome to the show, Catriona. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much, Brigetti. Yeah, I'm excited to be here today. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
It's an absolute pleasure. Pleasure. Love having you join us today. And
Yeah,
as we do,
thank you.
yeah, tell us where in the world you are. Because the one thing that we love about doing this is that we've been able to introduce authors from around the globe, and you know different. So tell our viewers and where you are.
Well, it's a bright, sunny evening, and I'm in Dublin, in Ireland. So just after 5 o'clock now, actually. But yeah, that's where I am.
Beautiful. Well, the funny thing is that, being able to talking to people from around the globe, our weather is so different. And so for me, it's winter here, and Mary, my co-host, it's summer for her. And we always have a good laugh about how differently we are dressed on the show.
Oh
my goodness. So you are a full-time digital marketer. And in 2008, you won an award for your short story with the Dublin Sports and Cultural Council in their creative writing competition. And you told us that that's when you start your career as an author.
Yeah. So I suppose, 2008, it was like a decade ago. But what happened was that actually kind of sparked my my interest in writing a good bit more, because it was kind of like, up until that point, I'd been sort of doodling, and I had done a creative writing a short course in that prior to just before winning that award. That really actually helped me get my step up to actually winning that award, was actually doing that creative writing course, because I got so many tips out of it, and so much information from my teacher, that by the time I actually had a very fully polished, finished story at the end of that course, which I did actually enter into the competition and it did win an award, then I realized, okay, wow, actually maybe there is something to this writing talent I have, and maybe it has legs, and maybe I should, start pursuing it a bit more, a bit more, with a bit more discipline, a bit more energy.
Where did your love for writing start? Who was it that inspired you to want to write? Because usually it gets nurtured from somewhere.
It does, yeah. My answer is probably going to surprise you, maybe to a few other visitors, but it was really childhood. And the sort of fascination and wonder that really got imbued inside me from reading stories and adventures. I'm kind of naturally a very adventurous type of person. Like, I love going away and traveling, and it always invigorated me with a lot of excitement, really reading the Goosebumps stories when I was a child, in the local library. The entire section, I had them all read, and that really inspired me, like just reading about what other kids got up to. And, you know, I'm a natural daydreamer. You know, I got told off a bit in school when I was a child for daydreaming too much. So I had some natural pre-existing tendencies, let's just say. And writing was just this avenue that just was so limitless. You know, I could just go as nuts as I wanted. And for someone like myself, that's like just opening up a feast in front of me and saying, you know, take what you want. And, you know, and it's just the boundarylessness of it all that really helps. And I guess I have a natural sort of competency in language as well. So combining the two of them together, writing was almost just like a no-brainer pursuit to go after, really.
Wonderful, wonderful. And the idea for the book itself, where did that come from?
That's a great question. So that spanning back to, probably around the same year, I would say 2006, when I actually started getting the idea together. And I think it wasn't like, you know, I sort of had a dream and then I woke up the next day and I wrote it down. I was like, oh, that's a great story. I think it just came to me in like piecemeal. You know, when I was in my teens, you know, it was really a combination of sources that brought that story together. You know, I was inspired by the likes of The Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, and those were out in the film, like out in cinema at the time. And that sort of, you know, really helped bring about this whole story of the protagonist, Liliana, and her journey. And I think as well, like for me, like, you know, I came up with that idea when I was an adolescent, and the protagonist is an adolescent, and that is no coincidence. You know, it was really about that sort of huge desire to kind of escape on my own adventure, that, you know, this was a way for me to channel and funnel that out of me, you know, into a story. And it was a mixture of various influences like that, really, that brought the story, the idea of the story together.
And the characters in your book, are they entirely fictional, or did you weave in people that you know in real life?
Yeah. Yeah. Another great question.
And do they know?
And do they know? Yeah, that's another follow-up question. Yeah. Yeah, I guess like I kind of answered it partially. My previous answer was that the protagonist has probably got a bit of me in her. And it's funny, actually, there's another character in there who I haven't really told, but a very close friend of mine, when we were best friends, when we were an adolescent, she's still in there. She's a character in there as well, who plays the best friend of protagonist. So some of it's very kind of obvious to probably the people closest to me have read the books. But yeah, one of them is a good friend of mine. There's a bit of me in there. And there's also, thirdly, there is also someone else, an elderly woman who I used to know, who I've put in there too, as well as one or two members of my family. And I've kind of put in some of their tendencies and their personalities, you know, because these would be people who are closest to me at the time when I was, you know, getting the idea of the story together. And yeah, I don't know if one of them has passed away now, so they wouldn't know if they were in it or not. But yeah, it's other people who've read it who've been like, oh yeah, that's that person, isn't it, Catriona? And I'm like, yes, that's right. Other people have guessed pretty well, people closest to me.
And do you hide certain things in there that people won't know unless they know you really, really well?
I don't think so, actually. I don't think there's anything I've hidden in there that's too complex. No, I mean, I think what I have put in is something that probably readers or people close to me didn't expect. Was I've kind of put a lot of philosophy in there, particularly surrounding one character who's an elderly woman who's quite wise. And I think that might have taken a few people by surprise and off guard. But I tend to blog a lot about, you know, about self-help and things about life in general. So I've kind of snuck that in, you know, and I think that would be the only closest thing. There's nothing, I haven't left any breadcrumbs or anything like that, unless, you know, someone over analyzes it and tells me certain things like, oh, this part you meant this. And like, Yeah, sure, why not? But it's yeah.
Who is your biggest supporter while you were writing?
Wow. I never had anyone who was like my biggest supporter. I know my mother had to put up with me giving her draft after draft, chapter after chapter, and I'd be like almost chasing her around the house, asking her, "Tell me what did you think of that? Was it good? Like what did you think? Like if you're going to rate it out of 10, what would you say?" It was kind of like sort of almost badgering my mother, even though she probably wasn't the right target audience at the time. But like it's really it's about like people who you trust in your life to show your writing to, because writing is a very vulnerable art. And it was really about for me, it was really just my mother who I felt comfortable enough with at the time to show. So I think if there was anyone who probably supported me at the time, it was probably her, because she was so she was so helpful at the time, like saying, okay, I'll read this, I'll read that. But really, I just had this energy and drive that I just had to get out of me, one way or another.
Yeah. And how did you decide on a publisher?
So for me, I did end up self-publishing the book. I never did decide on a publisher. But however, having said that, for in here, based in Ireland, there are some very good publishers. Like there's some sort of low-key houses that, if people in Ireland specifically are looking to publish, there's a good few of them around. I know Penguin is here too. But yeah, I mean, there's differences, I guess, between both. But in the end, I actually decided to go self-publishing. But for me, that was a personal decision. I didn't really want to kind of wait too long to kind of bring this out into the world, because I wanted to bring the book out to the world, So, but that was just, yeah, it's everyone's decision, but yeah.
So that, that journey is kind of different for everyone. Was there anything about approaching a publisher that was off-putting for you, or did you just decide right out of the bat you're not going to bother to submit to publishers, you're just going to bite the bullet and go the self-publishing route?
So I did approach a couple of publishers, but and you've probably already heard of these types of publishers. They were like a vanity publishing house, so you would publish the book for like a certain amount of money. And I just decided, you know what, I'm not actually willing to pay this. And I'm just being a natural digital marketer myself, and sort of being pretty savvy with the trends out there, and being sort of, I have natural competency in technical, like using like computer and whatnot, and file management and things like that. I decided maybe it makes more sense for me to actually just try the self-publishing route. So I did go ahead and do that, and I published on Amazon, and I did use some outside help too. I did use freelancers and things like that, which I'm experienced in liaising with, because my job also entails liaising with freelancers on various different platforms, such as Upwork.com and Fiverr as well. That's another one too. So I just decided maybe my natural orientation is to just go to self-publish.
So that was kind of a blessing in disguise, having the career that you have and giving you the opportunity to help you with self-publishing and marketing, because not everyone has that kind of background to fall onto. And how have you gone about marketing your book? How, apart from your digital efforts, have you gone out to any libraries? Do you do any in-person reading? Have you done any of that?
No, I guess for me, my area is mainly digital, and that's where I've stuck. And that's kind of, it's my natural comfort zone. So that's where I would, normally would promote the book. And I'm quite, like, for me, I'm quite satisfied and happy doing that. And, of course, like I'll self-promote as much as I can within my own circles, within my own writers groups and things like that. But no, normally, like, I would just promote it online. I'm quite happy to, you know, to market it as a Kindle and as a printed book. But yeah, that's kind of, yeah, that would be the extent of it.
Ah, okay. Now I just wanted to know that because a lot of people have a hard time making that decision, you know, first of all, do I self-publish? Do I go to publisher? And then how do I market? And I think having done this yourself is a huge learning curve. And so if anyone, would you recommend this route to a new author who's not done this before?
Yeah, it's funny you should ask that, because someone of the writers in my own writers group approached me on that topic a couple of weeks ago. She was sort of in the middle of whether or not to publish or self-publish. And the only thing I'd say about it, and I've kind of learned this from going to a couple of conferences on it, is that, you know, it depends really on your own preferences, and on your own confidence, you know, in terms of, you know, doing it yourself. Like some people don't mind allowing the publishing house to make certain decisions for them about the book. For example, like the publishing house might decide, okay, well, this is how the front cover is going to look, and the author may not get a say in that. So the author would have to be sort of, they'd have to say, yeah, okay, even though they may not actually like it, or, you know, and they may make changes to the book as well that the author may not like particularly like, you know, for one reason or another. It's really about the level of control that you want to have over your masterpiece. And, you know, if you're willing to be okay with the publishing house marketing it, they want to market it, you know, presenting the book the way they want to present it to the world. If they decide that this is going to be the target market, and you're okay with those decisions being made without much of your input or influence, then yeah, you should probably go with a publishing house. Self-publishing is particularly not just for people who can't get a publisher. It's also for people who want that level of control over their novel. For example, last year I attended a conference and there was a particular Irish author there, and she had been with, I believe it was HarperCollins up until 2012, and they had been publishing her books for her on her behalf. But she kind of had a business background, probably similar to myself. I'm not sure if she was in marketing, but she had a sort of, you know, that experience in that head on her. And she didn't like the decisions they were making about the book. So she actually decided to go down the self-publishing road. So it's kind of interesting because you don't hear many authors going from a publishing house to self-published, but it's kind of interesting how it's turning into a two-way street now, you know, like that's kind of where it's gone. So it really depends on your preferences, you know.
And as you said, you have a lot more control. Now your cover, for example, you've got a lovely cover. Who designed that? You did. Wow.
It was actually, so I guess this is where my digital marketing expertise comes into this as well. There's a lot of stock photo websites out there, and you know, you can buy a decent image and get the rights for it, for like obviously to a point, you know, purchase the image. So there was a two-step process to getting that cover done. The first step was that I actually went on to image purchasing websites, such as iStock Photo and Deposit Photo. I know them pretty well because of it's part of my job, to put it shortly. And I found that image, and I decided, I think that's probably the one that I want to go for because it stands out very well. And I think it represents the character, the spirit and the soul of the character, and, you know, who she finds herself to be at the end of the book. So that all tied in very well together. So the second part of the process was then to actually use a freelancer to take that image and put the title on it, you know, put the author's name on it, and to put the synopsis on the back of it, to make sure that my author shot was on the back of it okay. And of course, just to maybe point out, and just as a notation for anyone watching, like if anyone is interested in sort of doing self-publishing and things like that, if you're going to like get the front cover done yourself, that's great. I mean, you can do it at a low price as well. Like you don't have to spend, you know, a few $100s getting it done, unless you want a specially sourced original image. Mine was not, I purchased it. but just to let everybody know that you would kind of need to know what the size dimensions will be of the book prior to getting the front cover done, because Amazon will want to know, like, you know, the length by the width. So it's good to kind of give the freelancer that spec up front, so they can design the front cover to be the correct size for your book as well.
One last question about actually getting your book to the point of being published. Did you get an outside editor, or did you self-edit?
I tried to self-edit and I failed. So yeah, I got an outside editor. So again, there was two parts to the editing process. There was the macro editing and there was the micro editing. The macro editing being obviously the plot development, the character development, the overall arching story, the pace, how it's developing. You know, is there parts too fast, too slow? And I was too close to it. I couldn't see the wood from the trees. So I needed an outside professional perspective to kind of evaluate it and say this, and this to me. So I did get an editor to look at that particular part of the book, like from that particular perspective, I should say. The micro editing, I did try somebody, a particular freelancer. Now I did try it for like a low price. You know, it was an 88,000 word novel, and I think I paid something around the region of $200 for someone to just take out any mistakes. But I don't think that service was too great. So I think if you're going to get an editor to do like a micro edit, which is like spelling and grammatical checking, you should probably go for someone a bit more expensive. In the end, for the micro editing and the spelling and the grammar, which came after, by the way, the macro edit, like, so, you know, you want to make sure that the story is there, the character development is there, and everything else, and you're happy with how the book is from start to finish. And then, of course, then you kind of knuckle down into the spelling and the grammar at the end. So I actually did that part myself. And yeah, that's kind of how that worked out. Learning.
Well done. Well done. I also saw your video on YouTube, you know, the promo video. Did you do that yourself as well?
No, I did actually get a freelancer to do that as well on, I think it was Fiverr.com. So, I mean, on Fiverr.com, like, there's, you know, if you want to do self-publishing, you can do low cost, you know, and the quality really depends on what you're willing to pay for. But yeah, I did choose the music for it. But in terms of like the video itself, I did get someone outside to kind of do that.
I thought that was a very nice touch to marketing your book. So tell everyone, yeah. I can't believe it's, you know, we've already gone for 30 minutes. It's crazy. It's insane how quickly the 30 minutes went. Where can people connect with you?
Sorry, say it again. I didn't hear that last part.
How can people connect with you, Catriona?
Yeah, well, they can definitely connect with me on Facebook and on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter as well. So, you know, if you just you know, put my name in, I probably should come up. But yeah, I am on the different social media platforms. My website is actually currently under construction, but hopefully I'll have it up soon. And it should be CatrionaMurphy.com. And yeah, I think, yeah, that'll be the main ways.
Amazing. Fantastic. Catriona, thank you so much. It was awesome getting to know you and getting to hear your backstory. And I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's joined us today and everyone who's going to be watching this in replay. Thank you so much. And we'd love to have you back again sometime. Thank you so much. Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks very much for having me today, Brigetti. And I hope the interview has benefited a few people watching. I hope they've taken something away from it. So yeah, great. Thank you.
I'm sure. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye now.